Good morning, everyone.
Good morning and good Chodesh.
Good Tvach, good Chodesh. We are learning Mishna Nedarim, Perek Yud, chapter 10, Mishnah Vav, Mishnah 6. Now, Shemeres Yavam literally means a woman waiting for a Yavam. We know that Torah says that if a person dies without children, his brother has a mitzvah to do Yibum. And if there's more than one brother, any one of them can do Yibum. And basically, we say there is a bond between her and her brothers-in-law regarding this connection, this mitzvah of Yibum that can be done. If nobody does Yibum, then one of them does Chalitza, and that frees her to marry. Midrabanan, there is a process that is at least Midrabanan that says that before, according to Torah law, the Yavam cohabits with his Yavama, and she's his wife. That's according to Torah law. But there's something called a Maimer, which we mentioned many times before, which is a Kedushin. That's the man of the Yavama. And interestingly, we had this a long time ago, but there is a Machlekes Tanayim as to whether this Kedushin done on a Yavama has any kind of validity midaraisa. We know that when a man makes Kedushin on a woman, she becomes already married to him to a large degree. And there's a Machlekes Tanayim, if you do Maimer, meaning if you do Kedushin, give her a ring, to say that you're going to do the Yibum on her, whether that actually makes her like she is betrothed to you, like she's already married to you at the level of Arusa, is an argument amongst the Tanayim, amongst the sages of the Mishnah. And all this is going to make a very big difference to the Mishnah we are about to begin. Shemeres Yabim, which means a woman waiting for Yibum, Bein Yabim Echad, whether she is waiting, meaning whether she has a Yibum bond to one brother-in-law, being the Shnei Yavamin, whether there are two brother-in-laws involved. So now the question is, we're talking about where a Maimer was performed. One of them went and did Maimer. And once that one brother does Maimer, the other brother's not allowed to do Yibum anymore. She's basically now designated for Yibum for him. So we're talking about that the Yavam, the brother-in-law, went and made Kedushin on her, made the Maimer on her. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Yofer. Rabbi Eliezer says he has the power to cancel her vows. According to Rabbi Eliezer agrees with the opinions that a Maimer, when a brother-in-law does Maimer, does the Kedushin on his sister-in-law who is bound to him for Yibam, that Kedushin works like any other Kedushin. And she's an Arusa. She's betrothed to him. Now, what have we learned? What have we been learning in this parak already for a while? That if a girl who is a Naira becomes an Arusa, she becomes betrothed. So who cancels her vows? The father and the Aris, right? The father and the husband. So in this case, Rabbi Eliezer is saying the same thing applies. That we're going to go ahead and we're talking about here where she is going to deed, just like we said before, an Arusa who's until the age of 12 and a half. That Arusa needs her Nedarim can only be canceled by her father and her husband. So Rabbi Eliezer says the same thing happens now when the brother-in-law, when the Yavim, does Maimer on his sister-in-law. She becomes like an Arusa to him. Now, it's important to keep in mind here, I'm going to read to you here from the bottom. Since they are like a betrothed couple, the Yavim can cancel an Nedarim only together with her father. Therefore, this law applies only if the Yavama have been merely betrothed to the deceased brother. They've been fully married, her father no longer has any control over her Nedarim, and the Yavim cannot cancel them on his own. We've had before that once a girl gets fully married, but she went to the chuppah, so even if she gets divorced and she's still under the age of 12 and a half, the father's out of the picture. So if she goes ahead now and she gets betrothed to someone, that means that you only have a husband, you only have an Aris there, a husband at the level of Arisin. That husband can never on his own cancel another. So therefore, in our case here, Rabbi Eliezer says he could cancel, which means he's going to cancel with the father, and that's only possible if her husband who died, that has created this whole Yibum situation, she was only muresis to him. She was only betrothed to him. Because if she was actually fully married to him, then she's out of the father's power to cancel. And therefore, the case of the Mishnah is specifically number one, we're talking about she's still under the age of 12 and a half because she's still under the control of her father. And the husband that died was only married to her at the level of Erison. Because if he would have been married to her at the level of Nisuin, again, she'd be out of the father's control for Nedarim. And now, this Yavim who makes Mimer on her, which is the equivalent of Kedushin, that's not going to allow him to cancel the neder, because a Yavim on his own, I'm not sorry, Yavim, an Aris, someone who did Erison on his own, can never cancel his Arusa, his wife's vows. Okay, so that's the first opinion of Rebbe Lezer. Rebbe Lezer basically says the Mimer acts just like a regular Kedushin, and as a regular Kedushin, we say, who does the canceling? The father and the husband. Rabbi Yeshua says, Le'echad v'loy l'shnayim. The only time the Yavim will be able to cancel her neder is if there is one Yavim, not two. And that means like this. According to Rabbi Yeshua agrees with the opinion that Mimer, according to Torah law, does not do anything to the Yavama. The whole Mimer, the whole act of Kedushin is a rabbinic law that only says, according rabbinically, that no other brother can now do Yibam. She's now designated to this brother. But according to Torah law, it has no effect. So there is no Eris in here. But what there is what we mentioned before. There's a bond of Yibam, which is called Zika. There's a bond of Yibam between the brother-in-law and his sister-in-law. Says Rabbi Yeshua, if there is one Yavim, there's only one brother-in-law that has this bond, then we say that bond is strong enough to make her like your wife. And according to Rabbi Yeshua, this Yavim can cancel the Nedarim by himself. Nobody else. She becomes like a full wife to him for Nedarim. But if there's two brothers-in-law, that means there are two brothers-in-law who have a Yibam bond to her, then, because that's possible, right? She had two brothers, the guy died, there's two brothers. Each one of them can do Yibam, which means the Yibam bond is to both of them. Now the question is, who's going to actually do the Yibam? But the bond is to both of them. So therefore, since the bond is to both of them, and we don't know which one is going to do the Yibam, when there's only one Yavim, when there's only one brother-in-law, we know he's going to do the Yibam. He's going to do the Yibam. Now, according to Rabbi Yeshua, just give me a second here. Right. According to Rabbi Yeshua, even without the Mimer, if there's one Yavim, which means that he would be the one that's going to be doing the Yibam, he is considered like a husband. But when there's two, you can't have two husbands. And therefore, it comes out that the only one who we could say is her husband is the one who will eventually do Yibam. We don't know that. We don't know who's going to do it yet. And therefore, when there's two, they can't go ahead and cancel her Nedarim. But if there's one Yavim, he's the only one that has the Yibam bond, he's the only one that would do Yibam, then we say that he can go ahead and cancel her vow. Now, this is very interesting. I just thought about this because it seems like, again, we're talking about he didn't even do Mimer, right? But he didn't do Yibam yet either. So he may decide to do Chalitza. Nonetheless, the fact that he is the sole person with that bond, he's the sole person that would do Yibam, that gives him the powers like a husband to cancel her vow, even without the father. Rabbi Akiva says, Loi le'echad v'loi l'shnayim, not to one and not to two. Doesn't matter how many brothers, how many Yavims there are, how many brother-in-laws there are. Even if there's only one brother-in-law who the Yibam bond is to, he's the only one that could do the Yibam. Nonetheless, Rabbi Akiva says he cannot cancel the vow. Why is that? Because Rabbi Akiva says really two things. Rabbi Akiva is saying, even if there's Mimer, doesn't make a difference. He holds, like Rabbi Yeshua, that Mimer does not have any power, according to Torah law, to make her like an Arusa, to make her betrothed, to make her partially married, and therefore, that's not going to allow him to go ahead and cancel together with the father. And the fact that there is only one Yavim, and there is that Yibam bond only to him, according to Akiva, that's also not enough to give him the power to cancel, and therefore, at the end of the day, there is no one that has the ability to cancel the Yavam's Nedarim. Well, one second. Right, there is, therefore, no, okay, according to Rabbi Akiva, it would seem that according to Rabbi Akiva, no Yavim can ever cancel Yavam's Nedarim, even if he made Maimer. And if they cannot cancel a Nedarim, so could the father still do it? Because again, she only became a widow from Erison. So she was in the father's domain. The Aris died, but now the brother's there, but the brother has no power to go ahead and cancel the Nedarim. So would the father now alone have the power to cancel, like she's just backed by him and there's no one else there? I don't know. Have to think about that. I didn't see anybody mention anything about that, but just now thinking about it, it would seem that if the Yavim has no power at all, then the father has all the power. Unless that much power he has to say the father can do it by himself. I don't know. That doesn't seem to, I didn't see anybody talk about that. Rabbi Akiva's point is, though, that in contrast to Rabbi Eliezer, who said that the brother-in-law who did Maimer can cancel together with the father. And according to Rabbi Yeshua, who said that if there's one Yavim, he alone can cancel. Rabbi Akiva says there is no Yavim who can go ahead and cancel his Yavam's Nedarim. Only after he does Yibum, she becomes his full-fledged wife, then he can cancel them. And then he would do it by himself because he's the husband. Have a wonderful day. Shvua Tov. Agut Chodesh. Chodesh Tov.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay.
Question, what if you have